something you've done. So we're into game 1 draft here. GAM Esports on your blue side, Weibo LPL representative on the red side here. So pretty stock standard meta bans, but hey, you were talking about Levi. He might just straight up draw a 3-ban so far. Nocturne, nope, not a 3-ban. Nocturne, Wukong, Rumble, classic LPL bans, maybe except the Nocturne.
Yeah, Pantheon is obviously much weaker than it has been for a majority of the year, but Levi has really favored that Pantheon. If they do want to go for something like that, Viego, Xin Zhao, those are the other big picks overall for Levi. We'll see if they want to go for something that aggressive. Likely it's just going to be a bit more stable. A lot of options for GAM on the board. Game number 1 of Fearless really dictates the idea of what, play style they want to go for. Corki does make a lot of sense. This is Artemis's most played across this year, and certainly can be a bit more flexible in terms of the comp you want to put around it.
Don't hate it, knowing that I would argue the biggest struggle, maybe not all year, but of late, I felt like for Weibo, especially in the regional qualifier, did feel like light and crisp. The bottom lane was the biggest blunder for them. Was part of that because they had to play like Pays? Yeah, but still a weak link nonetheless. So getting comfortability if you are GAM for your bottom lane is always nice, but Weibo are going to make the same exact turn that we saw Nongshim do in their game 1 red side draft. It's the Orianna J4.
Love me some Ori J4. It's goes back to the conversation we had in the previous series, which was ease of execution, right? Just creating a game plan that can work in a variety of different situations. You don't need every bit of gold in the entire game. You don't need to be up 2K in order to make Orianna Jarvan work. You can be in a pretty neutral game state and still feel comfortable playing with that, kind of duo. So I love that early. I think especially for Tian to be able to have that playmaking ability on the Jarvan. But it will be the Poppy as the answer. I think Poppy's incredibly strong still in the meta. I think her kit really does a lot to kind of balance out some of the weaknesses of a lot of the strong champions. And so this will make a lot of sense, I assume, going to Levi here.
Last pick coming. Yeah, so I do already... Listen, I'm not the biggest Corki fan in a lot of spots. I'm not going to say it's not a bad pick in the meta, but low-range Corki, Valkyrie is somewhat helpful, but I already think Artemis has a terrible time playing a lot of these fights. Ori J4, huge threat onto a marksman of Corki's ability. And now you've also really cut down your range. So the value of the Shockwave, the value of the Cataclysm with an Akali coming out for Aress. Yeah, okay, so I'm really... If Weibo could get Breathe Scion, I am already a much bigger fan of the Weibo draft as an answer to what GAM want to do. Because at this point now, you're super burst-oriented and low range. Like, those are two things that J4 and Scion eat up for breakfast every day of the week.
I will say, the only kind of alternative point there, I completely agree with you, by the way, Slayer. I think that the draft right now very much favors what Weibo is doing on the red side. The only thing I can say is that a really great Poppy game can kind of negate a lot of that, can really start to help push back a lot of the pressure coming in from J4, and it can make Orianna's engage a lot less consistent. So, I think it's going to be big to see what Levi or, theoretically Elio, if he does want to operate this, what ends up happening with them, because I think that champion could really kind of dictate kind of how aggressive Weibo are allowed to play. But for now, it's just going to be the bans coming out. Mbessa as a ban coming through. You don't want to play, into an Mbessa as a Scion. That's basically just giving Mbessa a free early game. Unfortunately, with these player cams, it's just, they're never in the spot that you want them to be in. They're always either a little too close, a little too high. They're just never where they're supposed to be.
Yeah, guys, I'm going to cast from right here, by the way, the entire time.
Okay, so the Yunara band's coming out.
Bro, light back up. Oh, this isn't Counter-Strike. This is like Counter-Strike players. It reminds me of Counter-Strike players where they're just like literally like the monitors, right? They literally play right. They literally sniff their monitor. That's what Light's gonna be the vibes. All right, bans though. Light was the target of the second round of bans. I can't believe he drew a Caitlyn ban. That was out of left field to me. But the Yunara makes a bit of sense nonetheless here. A lot of champions that Light could go for. Lucian was not going to be one that I'd think of. I still think he's going to end up going Lucian here. I think it's just going to be Lucian Braum, likely. But they get the Braum first.
Would make a lot of sense. I mean, you take the Braum away because theoretically, you could still have that taken on the other side. Lucian not really in danger unless they want to flex this Corki mid and the Akali top, which would certainly be a wild way to conclude this draft. But right now, I think GAM actually do need like an actual carry on the top side, and that's where the Aatrox ends up coming in. I like this for Kiaya. He's always been a really good Aatrox player off of memory here, and I think it does create some fun instances. you never really want to talk about hovers too much. I don't think it's impossible for them to flex this Poppy down into the support position. I don't really hate that as a matchup overall if they are going to go something like Lucian. So definitely quite a few things to potentially go for, and they are the Lilia lock.
Yeah, I think Lilia is a great answer into the beefy boys for Weibo. Good luck chasing around Lilia with passive. That's where we're at here. And like you talked about, putting Levi at center stage as a carry potential, right? It is Kiaya and Levi that are going to be doing a ton of lifting if this game doesn't get out of control early and naturally progresses. Once you get to the 25, 35 window that a lot of games end in, you would imagine Kiaya and Levi are in a really good spot. But I still think Weibo have come away with a very clear draft. You said it again. We're going to keep preaching it here, Kman. Ease of execution. Sion, J4, Orianna, pretty simple. Light Crisp lane. Lucian Braum lane for Light Crisp. Pretty straightforward here for Weibo.
Yep, it is very straightforward for how they want to play the game, and it fits their own individual strengths. I will say, though, I really do love the Aatrox Lilia coming in as kind of the final 2 picks here for GAM. I really do think it gives them a very clear win condition if you can get to that part of the game, because Aatrox is a massive problem for this pick comp on the other side if they are going to end up playing into it. I think the front to back could be, really effective if you are able to get one Lilia sleep off, and then all of a sudden Aatrox can run rampant because you don't necessarily have that big burst of damage with Orianna Lucian that should be able to take that, big carry on the top side out. So definitely more options, I think, than, maybe what a team like BNK Fear had against the Orianna Jarvan in game number 1 in the previous series, but certainly ease of execution very much favors Weibo here.
And I think it does also play into their strengths and weaknesses better as well. Breathe has been best as a top laner, nullifying carry matchups, playing, Sion games. He has a really good Cassante a lot of this year on the split, even like Yorick games. And then mostly I want to talk about Xiaohu, who gets to play just a simple control mage into a comp where his only threat is really going to be this Akali. Lilia's not going to be able to punish him a lot early. That's where Xiaohu has been weakest. And then he just gets to play Orianna that he has thousands of games on and has multiple MVP-like performances. So Weibo definitely favored in this matchup against the LCP 4 seed and maybe have a slight edge coming out of draft. But if we learned anything from our second series of the game, things can get wonky quickly here in the ASI, and I don't want to speak for GAM Esports, but Weibo have ruined some drafts with their execution many times in the LPL this year. So truly anything can happen on the Rift today.
Look, we got 2 LCK teams in the previous series, and they fiestaed their way to a 3-game set. If they can do it, the LCP and the LPL can as well. I'm hoping for more entertaining games. I'm hoping for more action coming out from these 2 teams. I think both have set themselves up to be aggressive in the way that they play. A lot of engaged tools coming in from both sides, and, a comp that doesn't necessarily have clean frontline, it always means something a bit more sloppy, a bit more chaotic, a bit more unconventional, and it's just going to be about who can thrive in that environment, who's going to be able to come out on top in here in game number 1.
Right now the winners are, never mind. I don't want to even speak that into existence. We are set here. On to the Rift. Game 1. Our second look at an LPL team in the ASI and our first look at an LCP representative, GAM Esports on that blue side. And here we go. Final series of the night here. It will be all of Group A having played a match once we are all done and set here. And it's going to be Weibo. They're looking to make quick work of the LCP to maybe try and reestablish that, hey, guys, listen, the LPL does have a shot against the LCK teams. This is not like Worlds. This is not like all those debates you see run rampant on Reddit. And a good way to do that for Weibo, maybe help lift up the spirits of J2G fans, is take care of business against GAM. And what we're looking to do at level 1 is, Elio commits the flash despite the Winter's Bite stun, but there's no flash forward from Light to maybe find the kill. Tian neither, so they're just going to take the flash off of that Poppy support, take away some kill threat early.
It's just huge for them to be able to get that off of the Poppy. This is already a lane that I think is very much in favor of the Lucian and the Braum, but now it's even more so. Breathe even sticking around to make this a little bit less safe for Levi on the Lilia to be able to counter jungle this out, but Breathe is sacrificing a lot. See how valuable this can be.
Classic Sion behavior. Okay. Doesn't get level 2 yet. Breathe. Buddy, you're not going to have level 2. Okay, he's going to chase Levi around. This is just a stall game, right? He's trying to slow Levi's clear as much as he possibly can because Tian is taking all of his red side camps. So, yes, Breathe is sacrificing a lot, but he's into an Aatrox lane where he feels like he's going to fall behind. So what would he rather do? Like a true Chad teammate, he is just setting Tian up to be a lot further ahead, unless he just solo kills Levi, who doesn't even flash, and all... Yep.
I have no words. It's such a massive mistake. It's actually so consequential. Levi is completely out of the early game now. It is unplayable for this Lilia, at least for the next 5 or so minutes. And we'll see what Tian can do to take advantage of that, because now the Jarvan is in as prime of a spot as possible to have that early pressure. We've talked about this with the champion like Jarvan. He's surprisingly good. I guess maybe not surprisingly, but capitalizing early, he's going to try here.
I mean, why not, right?
I see him.
At least Levi has flash. I'm just watching if Aress is going to move over. Nope.
He doesn't have the health.
No, he doesn't. I think. Oh, they brought Kiaya down. All right, that's what gets Tian away. Oh, I think he's going to get pulled back. Wow, what a Freaky Friday switch up this is. It's now Kiaya chasing Tian around in the middle of his clear. I guess Tian is now slower on his clear as well. I'm just going to pretend like junglers don't exist for a couple more minutes than usual in an early game. That's where we're at now, okay, man.
I think the players might be forgetting that this is an international tournament and not a scrim block because they're playing from their own, facilities. There's some crazy choices, like just decisions being made by all the teams here today, and it makes for fun game states, something we haven't seen all that much of, something like this, where I think both teams end up equalizing out in relatively, free effort, but certainly not a game state that I think is all that bad for either team. Weibo certainly in a better spot because of that first blood going over to Breathe, but, I think Levi's more in this game than we probably expected him to be after the death.
I like this stuff from Weibo. Light takes an early reset. Chris doesn't corral all the minions, but he does save a decent wave state for Breathe to now TP down into. And they're going to get the Lucian Braum into the 1v2 matchup to try and slow the Aatrox down. Good little macro rotation on the map there from Weibo. They should be able to accelerate their lead a bit more here and, well, maybe allow Tian to... Okay, how is Tian a level down to Levi? How has that ever happened with what we saw on the top side? Tian hasn't done any of his bot lane camps. Am I crazy or what?
No, I truly think that we have played 7D chess and gotten ourselves stuck in the time continuum here, as Tian is crisp now. Could be in some danger.
All right. Shield goes down. Though. Tian is right here. Chris still flashes instead of dashing to his ally. We're warming up. We're warming up, okay? Listen, both these teams haven't played a lot of competitive league in a bit, guys. Let's give them some grace in the chat. Let's be nice.
Yeah, I think we're going to need some grace after this early game. Hopefully this ends up turning around. You can even see it on the faces of the players. Certainly one of those games. We have a top lane fight going on. Kiaya's in danger.
Kiaya's dead. Kiaya's dead.
He's just dead.
Kiaya, good timed flash. Don't turn back. Don't turn back. Don't turn. Okay. All right. Whew. Nobody died.
Oh my God, I'm freaking out over here. Kiaya almost threw away his own early lead, which would honestly at this point just be thematic in terms of how things are going down. You fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, still shame on you. Fool me 8 times, I gotta start learning at this point that things are just gonna be.
Why did we jump to 8? What happened to
Slayer?
What happened to 3 through 7?
3 through 7 happened all in the previous series, where I've been conditioned now to believe in what is going to happen. And at this point, really the question is, who's going to be able to pressure these objectives? There we go. I'm back on track. Mountain Dragon has spawned here. We saw a lot of early dragon takes in the previous series. It'll be interesting to see if that same priority is here. Kiaya quite low though.
Kiaya's just getting ulted, right? Yep. All right. World Ender and Breathe is like, okay, nice, man. Enjoy your healing, I guess. I'm just gonna keep farming. Good old classic game of Ultimate Chicken.
This is the dream for Sion. He's kind of being let off free for free here in lane, which is never really ideal to do as Aatrox. You want to pressure this guy out as much as possible, generate that early lead. Luckily, Kiaya is doing a good job of actually getting that lead in terms of the CS advantage, but because of that free kill, Bramble's been completed, and now you can't really deal with the Scion 1v1 in the lane. Tian, though, is going to be starting up on that Mountain Dragon. Once again, a pretty early take, especially for LPL team standards. We usually see LPL teams prioritize grubs a lot more than the Heralds, or than the Dragon, I should say. And so definitely interesting, but still 1 minute on those grubs, so it will be the Dragon taken.
Yeah, a great call, Kman. I was going to point myself. That might be the earliest Dragon I've seen from an LPL team in months. So Tian gobbles that one up and is once again saying, "Hey Levi, I'm just gonna be a bit of a nuisance. Was hoping to maybe steal a big chicken away with a flag. Not gonna get it. With this lane swap though, Bree's gonna take his reset now. He'll have Unstoppable Onslaught up. I don't know if he'll be up right when the grubs spawn. I'm curious to see if Breeze sacks another lane to just overload towards these grubs. That's what GAM is doing. But no, he's going to head back bot sides. Levi's looking to make a play with a bit of a lilting lullaby. Elio going to flash to get the slam into the wall, and light is down. Creative avenues found. You can't put Levi down for long. And he gets GAM Esports on the board. Aress flying after Xiaohu, though, with perfect execution. First point used, and he's not going to follow up with that second big dash. Weibo feeling a bit more broader. Pushing forward, Shockwave going to come across from Xiaohu. They're going to layer the Braum stun in, and Levi sent packing just like Light was a couple seconds ago, and now both early neutral objectives going over to the LPL representatives.
It's the extended fight that really comes out in favor of Weibo Gaming. The setup is done well by GAM. They do a really good job of putting themselves in a position to utilize that Lilia-Poppy combination that can be so difficult to play into. The problem is they have to burn all of that just to kill Light, and all of a sudden you don't really have a lot of ways to deal with Xiaohu and with Tian throughout the rest of this fight. So Tian picking up the grubs here, very, very big for this Weibo draft in particular. I think they're going to be in a much better spot now that they can control the side lanes, and more specifically take that away from the Aatrox and the Akali that are already going to have at least a little bit of pressure on their own.
Always a win when you get the first two neutrals of the game, especially taking those off of the Aatrox comp. It's going to try and threaten Scion in the side lanes constantly. Pretty big here for Weibo, who are starting to settle into their classic cruise control out of the early game by this point. Got decently significant farm leads. I also want to shout out Mr. Suspect early game mid laner Xiaohu all year. He is he's going to be up multiple waves over Aress by this point and going to be able to TP right back to continue pushing that issue.
Yeah, I mean, Xiaohu, he has the reputation for not being the most consistent of laners, but when he figures it out, when he gets a matchup that he likes, he takes full advantage of it. I generally think that with the two junglers available in this game, this matchup is pretty neutral. So to see this lead so heavily taken by Xiaohu and by Weibo Gaming is certainly impressive. Roa now completed for that Orianna. Shockwave will be up in 5 seconds as well. That's a very, very quick Roa, and this is going to be a game where that Orianna can be quite a problem if we do end up even just lasting another 10 minutes or so.
And I'm curious to see if they explore. We talk about Artemis as the target for a lot of these combos, but I'd like to see, you know, a good old Shockwave Cataclysm onto Levi. This Lilia without Flash is a real true threat, and I think the more you put down Levi and Kiaya in the early to mid game, the more you can maybe cover for some antics that stall this game out later, as they'll be the true threats. But the Glacial Fish are coming down. Elio knows that Levi's here to cover. Dead. Once again, it's Light that dies first, but Tien's here to clean up. Gets the Cataclysm, traps Artemis in. Chris trying to flash away from Elio. Levi and Tian into a fisticuffs match right now as Elio going to knock down Crisp. Now it's a 1 versus 2. Slam into the wall, comes across from Elio. Tian waiting on a flag and drag, but he's burning through the poison. Oh. Great steadfast presence cancel from Elio, and that's going to get Levi another kill back. GAM are willing to go blow for blow with Weibo early.
Really well played by GAM. Even Artemis, who ends up falling in that fight, does so much damage before he ends up dying, living on a sliver of health throughout all of that. This is exactly what I was talking about in draft, why I loved this Poppy pick so much as an answer to Jarvan, because it's really difficult for J4 to actually play as aggressive as maybe he wants to, because the safety net isn't there. You're not able to just flag and drag your way out of fights. You have to make sure that you're committing when you go in, and it just makes things a lot more difficult. Chris wants to go for this because jungle is in the area, but unfortunately Light just gets bursted down. The moment that Levi ends up joining this play becomes difficult. Look at how long Artemis ends up living here, though. He basically destroys Crisp's health bar and makes this a free 2v1 in favor of GAM. And at this point, Tian just doesn't have the damage to be able to do anything. He tries to flag and drag out, but again, Elio with a fantastic play to make sure that that is not possible. Even gets him before he gets over the wall as well. Can be a little bit tricky there with the interaction timing. So just very well played with GAM all around. And they have a pretty huge gold lead now, 1K, and it's pretty well spread out.
Yeah, they got Levi back in control. Aatrox able to use the CS lead for Kiaya to take some gold back over Breathe. And, of course, Artemis up at 600 right now over the struggling Light. We highlighted bottom lane was a big pain point for Weibo, even though they made the switch over to Crisp going into split 3, and once again showing signs of a slow and just not comfortable start from this bottom lane that the LCP is happy to take advantage of, as we saw many LPL teams do in the latest split.
Yeah, I mean it's tough, right? Like, Crisp is going to have some trouble this game, I think, on the Braum, as long as he's not able to, live. I think he's got to start getting some tank stats underneath
Targeting
him.
analysis.
Yes, that's why they paid me the big bucks. But what I would say what GAM is really afraid of in this game is one bad combination. Again, that's the problem with playing into Jarvan Orianna and giving that over on red side, is that it really just takes one fight to get Ori or Jarvan enough gold to become such an issue that you really can't play a lot of these fights out. You can't really afford to make any sort of mistakes here. So far, GAM have been pretty good about that, but they got to keep it up.
Where do they look to continue? Maybe a dragon
right now,
here, Ocean Soul?
Yeah, definitely dragon. I think that's the obvious choice is dragon right now. You have Herald about 1 minute and 45 away, and so making sure to pressure that Ocean Dragon as much as you can if you're GAM is the best thing you can do. You can't allow Weibo to have it for free, especially because your power spikes are definitely a little bit delayed. Akali's still not on that first item, neither is the Aatrox, and so you don't really want to take a full-out fight here if you can help it.
Levi scouting with a little bit of a bowling ball, not going to find the mark on any pins. Kiaya actually cancels the back here to try and threaten a turret. Colin coming down here from Light a bit early. It's going to be Aress jumping in and maybe dissuade Tian. He still gets the dragon. Aress into the Shroud. Keeper's Word comes out from Elio. It's going to boot out the Braum. Breathe, though, going to flash over the wall, force Aress to flash over his own red buff wall. All the while, Kiaya gets some alone time on this turret, but it's Weibo that have themselves sorted for a Cloud Soul position. Just going to cost them first brick, it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, it's an okay spot for Weibo here, but you definitely can't afford to give too much gold over to Kiaya. I think Aatrox is certainly going to be the biggest threat in this comp for GAM. I think there is a real shot that this champion becomes very hard to kill as this game goes along if you don't get enough damage onto Orianna and Lucian. Will actually be the defend here. Teleport coming in from Kiaya to make sure this tower actually stays up. So overall, it's just a pretty good play for GAM. They didn't even have to trade bot tier 1 for it.
Something softens the blow for Weibo. They don't. First brick didn't really matter because of Weibo grabbing first grubs, first Drake. When they grab that Ocean Dragon, they actually already got Feats of Warfare. So those got dusted off pretty quickly before plates even dropped. A little bit of extra gold that Weibo get, right? They are still down 2K, but getting that boost on your boots cuts down in that gold just a little bit. Got to keep in mind going forward.
I mean, it matters. Like, it certainly does, play into things. I think there are a lot of opinions on tier 2 boots. I think the reality often ends up somewhere close to the middle in terms of how much of an impact on the game they have. They certainly do impact things overall, but the question is how much, because, this gold deficit that Weibo is at, it's not just a little bit, it's 2K. I mean, they're down a considerable amount of gold, and so much of that is on priority targets. 2 kills onto the Lilia, 1.2K gold advantage on the Aatrox. These are the 2 champs I'm the most scared of if I am Weibo. So certainly want to make sure that you play these fights correctly. You can't really allow GAM to be the ones to set up, especially around this Herald right now, which Levi is already done. He's going to be starting it up.
Artemis, though, caught out of position. Glacial Fissure going to force him to flash over the entire distance. Redemption also comes down from Elio, so that key tool comes off the board. Slow comes through. Culling, Light going to cancel early. Herald, though, taken off of aggro. Kiaya on the flank, going to pop the World Ender. Levi gets the lilting lullaby, but it's only on to Light, who's covered by Xiaohu.
Here comes the ult.
Soppel onslaught. Breeze just going to drive on through and say, no, GAM. No more fight to be had here.
Yeah, just a huge disengage coming in from Weibo that gives them full control over the river. That's the power of Sion. Despite the fact that he's 1k gold down, it does not matter. He can still impact the fight a ton. Want to make a big point there that Tian actually stays full health throughout all of that, which is really huge for a potential turn. So well played by everybody involved, but definitely ends up favoring Weibo, and they should have full tempo now to try and take this Rift Herald. They are going to start it up. I doubt there's going to be a contest over this.
Nope, I see Levi cruising towards his bot camp, so good little scuffle for Weibo to grab 4 for 4 out of neutral objectives, by the way. They've gotten 3 grubs, Rift Herald, first 2 dragons. The trade here for GAM is that Kiaya is going to grab the second turret, so no turrets being knocked down from Weibo. I think with grubs on the Herald, that shouldn't be a problem for them much longer.
Yeah, it's definitely, looking a little bit scary for GAM. I do think they're making the right call in this instance to trade that tower because, again, gold onto Aatrox is good gold at this point in the game, but you can't keep making trades like this throughout the entire game and just hope that eventually Aatrox will be strong enough. You do eventually have to pull the trigger on all of that gold you're generating. I think the thing that gives me confidence is that Artemis is still up quite a bit in terms of CS and in terms of gold right now. It's all really just about, can the Corki play the game against the Jarvan-Orianna combo?
Talking items as we're getting first items coming through for virtually everybody. We already saw in a Kali game earlier today, Kman, with the Rocket Belt start, but Aress showing off maybe the LCP meta Storm Surge Rush. You don't normally see this from a Kali players on the competitive scene.
Yeah, I actually really like this in this game. I think Storm Surge is going to give you a lot more just overall power at this point in the game, and that's what you kind of need right now. You need to be able to stabilize this game state because you do have such a big lead. You're not being counted upon to be this 1v9 machine where you need Rocket Belt for mobility. If you can get on one target, you can probably do enough to be able to create enough for Lilia and Corki and Aatrox to take over. I think overall, just comp-wise, this does make a lot of sense in my opinion. So we'll see if it ends up being effective. If the Akali just ends up not having the mobility, then we'll blame itemization, I guess.
Oh, Crisp. Lucky to not get pulled back on the chain. He was recalling on a ward. Breathe making a play towards Aress on the top side. Tian close by. This makes smash knock-up into flag and drag knock-up. Hello, knock-up city. Here comes a dunk down I expect from Tian. Oh, okay. Aress not going to be punished for not perfectly executing his dash over that wall. No ults traded, though, for Weibo. It's GAM on the immediate response, though, onto that Cloud Drake, and Weibo look more than comfortable to give it up because they now want to make the reverse of the trade. All right, we took some early objectives, but now it's our turn to start knocking down turrets. It's going to be the first Drake for GAM for the first turret in the mid lane down for Weibo.
Yeah, again, it's an okay trade in isolation.
Guys?
I think this one is worse than it is. Oh, I really thought that thing might stay up, but nope. They have just enough damage from the minions to be able to take it down, but again, I just don't know if that's quite as fruitful as maybe as it was for GAM, because you're not necessarily, you're using a big resource like Herald to be able to facilitate that play at all, and you get your own dragon taken away from you. The stacking is delayed at the very least for a little bit. If you want that soul, now you got to wait 5 extra minutes, which is never really a great place to be when you're a team comp that does kind of want to just keep going forward. You don't really want to feel like you have to play defensive into Lilia and Aatrox and Corki. So, for GAM, I think they're going to consider this a success to be able to stop that stacking and to keep gold on priority targets.
And most importantly, more time where they just haven't felt threatened by this Jarvan and Ori yet, right? We saw one little skirmish where each ult was used individually. Tien's had some chase down on Cataclysms, but Weibo really make their bread and butter with that combo, kickstarting setup for Culling, setup for the Scion to fly in, and we haven't had them ever comfortably in position to do so just yet. It's allowed, more importantly, Levi, I want to highlight catching up here as he takes his reset. This should be him locking in a second item. Haunting Guy's Mask coming off the board. Yep, and there's the Riftmaker. So Levi is cruising after falling so far behind early.
Yeah, Levi and Kiaya, the two players we highlighted as being the pillars, the rocks for GAM over the course of the past few years, really a lot of this team's history, those two kind of being the key pieces. They are the ones who are going to need to step up in this game alongside Artemis to get GAM over the hump of a Weibo Gaming team that everybody kind of favored heading into this series. Well, Weibo are behind the 8 ball. They're down 1K, 1.5K gold right now in terms of the game state, and I don't necessarily think things get, a ton easier for them as things go along as long as GAM plays it well. So they need to start getting their foot on the gas as quickly as possible and make sure that they're not giving over free resources. No objectives on the map right now to prepare for, so you at least have a little bit more time to get to those second item spikes if you're, Tian, or, obviously get a little bit more gold under you if you're Crisp, but it's all really under the assumption that Otacon is not going to be forced, which you can never really be sure of in an LPL game.
Yep. All right, Kman, I was about to helpfully remind you that we're talking about an LPL team who are cripplingly addicted to coin flipping games at the Octagon. Oh, that shockwave and Xiaohu's going to hit absolutely nobody. Instead, he gets bopped out. Tian does. Bromstacks, though, going to make sure Elio nearly drops. It's the redemption to save him. Levi off to the side, trying to join the fight, but he runs into a very, very mad tank. Gonna have to use the Lilting Lullaby himself, flag and drag, and the Ensemble also knock him, come up, flash away from the Cataclysm, Decimating Smash, gets the slow for Breathe. But this is what Lilia wants to do, wants you to chase him around, and somehow nobody drops through all of that.
Yeah, I mean, what a chaotic fight for both sides. I think Elio plays it really well on the Poppy, but the setup is overall just quite bad for GAM, despite the fact that Xiaohu hits absolutely no one with that shockwave. It doesn't really matter. Teleport coming in. This is going down.
I've missed you, LPL. Oh, they've learned. Weibo have learned. We're not going to flip our entire game over an Otacon. We do not have the rights to attack. Problem is now, how confident are GAM feeling right now? They don't really have any ultimates on their side either, so I think GAM Esports are just happy to kind of make sure nobody's dancing with Otacon for now.
Yeah, honestly, I think only an LPL team would start up Otacon in this current game state, especially if you're Weibo Gaming with the way that they have played so far. But, credit to them for at least looking for opportunities to get themselves back in the game. Right now, the important thing is making sure that you have your items completed. Black Cleaver now completed for Tian, which I think is a massive thing to grab here for how dangerous the rest of this game is going to be playing front to back against this GAM comp. So, really nice pickup overall. And now your damage has really come through. I'm not going to pretend like they're, full on, ahead or better in anything like that. I think their mid-game comp is relatively equal in terms of the strength. And, GAM, I think, plays well in the late game, but it's all about execution now. Death Bush at least set in place.
Oh, but it looks like Kiaya will sniff it out. It's still Weibo, though, with control towards this Otacon and really starting to threaten the mid lane. Remember, Grubs on the side of Weibo. They've got Breathe here on the turret. The bell is ringing, GAM. Who's going to come answer it? It's Elio off to the side, looking for the first engage on the Tian. Keeper's Verdict into the Cataclysm. Elio punts out the Weibo jungler. Xiaohu tries to flash and gets the shockwave on the edge of its range. Elio is out. 4 versus 5. Aress looking for a way in on this Akali. Glacial Fissure, though, with the Scion's going to cut everybody off away from their assassin. Perfectly executes back away from his team. The Culling not positioned well enough for Light to find that kill, but they get the Akali out of their backline, and that means the Weibo can turn their attention back towards this dragon. It's really hard for GAM to push any fight without Elio. You can see the power of this Poppy engage starting for GAM as he drops, the only one in the fight. They're going to TP in a bit late.
Oh, they want
and
this.
Weibo are more than happy to get back out here. Kiaya trying to force something with Tian flag and drags out. Chris trying to slow everybody through. Elio on the respawn, just too little too late.
Huge win there for Weibo to get themselves to Soul Point. That's exactly what you need to do, but it's the Otacon started by GAM.
Okay, Crisp already recalled. He is not going to be present here. It's going to be a TP coming across. That should be Breathe. GAM, they're getting the resistance shredded. Kiaya is markedly very low. He does have the World Ender, and Aress has a flank, but there's no public perfect execution for him to lean on. Tian trying to find a way in. The Otacon down below 3K. He's going to have to go for the steal here or just give it over to Levi, who smites home the Otacon. Shockwave's going to hold Kiaya in place. Has to flash away with the World Ender. Doesn't get any value there. Aress off to the flank because this time proved to be pivotal on the flank. Not if Light gets down Kiaya. Artemis is out of mana. Gets trapped to the Cataclysm. Has to flash himself back out. Light can't find him down. But he's going to go after Elio as they do drop Breathe. Levi picks up that kill. Slow lanes for Crisp. They're looking to chase down further. His off-screen Tian does find the kill onto Artemis. Levi going to be able to run out thanks to the Cloud Soul map. But now they want to go after Aress. They're both members, the both most mobile members of GAM are being chased down, but Chris lands himself another big Q for the slow. Shroud at least hides Aress as he does use the flash to get away. GAM get the Otacon, but they sacrifice the entirety of their gold lead to do so, as Weibo will look to flip the script on that one, knocking down the mid-tier 2 turret.
Once again, in a game with an LPL team, Otacon continues to be bait as GAM throw away their entire lead to acquire it. We're going to get a replay here. It's well done by Levi to make sure that he can get this in the first place, but Kiaya has to take so much damage and burn so many resources just to zone off the team during this fight that all of a sudden your big gold lead that you had generated on him in the top lane is completely useless because he cannot play this. He's immediately taken down by Light and by Tian as soon as this fight goes awry. Now Levi is able to pick off Breathe on the top end of this fight, but basically nothing else is going well. Artemis is getting 1v1 by a Jarvan on the bottom side of this. It actually ends up being quite close, but still definitely in favor of Weibo, and now it's their turn to control the map. This is a good state for them to be in. Specifically, you're looking at a 1.2k gold lead now for Orianna.
Oh, Tian!
Oh, no, Tian!
My God, he tried to throw your lovely words for the Weibo squad out the window just like that. Cataclysm's a Corki under a tier 3 turret. And that goes full breaks for Weibo. Tian's going to have to heal up. He does have a lot of camps to cycle through and a red buff, but again, want to see that Cataclysm and Shockwave paired together. Despite Weibo making this comeback, getting back ahead in the gold lead, the bread and butter of their comp has yet to really come to fruition.
Yeah, I think that's just the tough thing, is just this combo is so specific and you don't really have a ton of other ways to make it work. You don't really have that secondary engage tool other than potential Scion. Elio looking on Light, though.
Looking for Light, doesn't get the first stun, gets the knockup. Light is out. That is huge. Elio can't kill off Light. This time, Aress over the turret. Also not going to find Light. He backs away comfortably. So that's Keeper's Verdict down. Aress out of position. Tian forces him to use that first dash of the perfect execution. So GAM lose 2 ults just like that for very little.
Yeah, this is a lot burned from GAM. No clue if it's going to turn into something. Still a minute and a half away from that soul, Cloud Soul for Weibo. So you do have some time to get a lot of your resources back up, but once again, it's Weibo just doing a better job of executing in these fights. And I think that's the most important thing, is when you talk about two drafts that both have ways to be able to play the game, if one of these teams is just posturing more aggressively, or if the engages that one of these teams goes for, you know, GAM in this case, if all they do is, you know, put everything into Light and he survives, and that's your game plan, then of course things are going to go a bit, you know, awry. It's not going to work out as much. I think GAM is being too impatient. They need to start setting things up a little bit better. Specifically, Aress needs to take better flanks onto these fights. He is constantly out of position here.
And they rely so much on this Akali to alleviate the front-to-back pressure that Weibo bring. But we talk a lot about the Orianna builds. It's been a huge hot topic of discussion in competitive play. You mentioned the Roa build. He now gets the Roa fully stacked. I don't think a decap is very far away here for Xiaohu. So again, I want to stress it. If Tian or Breathe can set up a huge shockwave here for Xiaohu, he's at the scale point on this champion where that shockwave can really be the game maker for Weibo.
One good shockwave and this game is entirely over, genuinely. That's how easy it would be here if you can get that either on top of Tian, on top of Crisp, on top of whoever. You know, on nobody, it doesn't really matter. As long as he can land that on a priority target like Artemis or like Levi, all of a sudden the entire game just falls out the window. They have that kind of advantage right now on the map. But Dragon is the priority. It has to be the thing that they fight over here if they can get soul, everything works out. Artemis
Oh, they've got Artemis. That's a huge kill to give up with no ults used except for Chris trying to catch Elio. And now how do GAM even argue that they could try to contest this Cloud Soul without their AD carry? There's no way to do so. It's Levi that takes a reset. They're giving this up.
I mean, it's a massive mistake. I mean, a game-losing mistake there from Artemis, who ends up going down. He had a lead early on in this game, just couldn't quite hold on to it, and that's Cloud Soul now acquired by Weibo. Baron is on the map as well. They can at the very least start to set up around this, but 20 seconds left on the respawn timer for this AD carry means that Weibo basically get to get whatever they want on the map until then.
It's going to have to really come down to Levi's playmaking with Elio. Seeker's Arm Guard is there, so the classic picturesque flash multi-man Lilting Lullaby is going to have to be the option, but that's going to have to be the saving grace here. Hold on, they might have Light trying to chase down Kiaya, completely out of position. He at least flashes away from Elio trying to set him up, and now looks for the turn with the culling. Crisp is here as well. They get the snare onto Levi. Shockwave's only going to find Elio as Levi goes into the stasis. Kiaya's in front of Light. They get rid of Elio. Aress off towards the flank side. They're really trying to get Light killed off here, but he survives for way too long. Lilting Lullaby comes across the end, goes for the dunk down, then flag and drags out. Smooth operator Tian just said bye-bye GAM Esports. That's going to dust the game off at 31 minutes. They've got the wave to walk him down mid.
No Baron, no problem for Weibo Gaming. It looks a little precarious in the first 15 minutes, but at the end of the day, the better team ends up winning. Weibo will take game number 1, and they will take full control of the rest of this series.
Early game may have been a bit wonky here from Weibo. Give up some kills that they definitely could clean up, but a team that has been marred by their map mistakes in the LPL and wacky decisions looked much more clean in the 2 latter halves of the game. Unless I jinx them right here, because they don't have a wave. No, there's Elio down. It's Aress that spawns in 10 seconds. This is it. So Weibo, it took the ASI for them to finally show up, but their first game in, a clean mid to late game, executing a comp that had a low bar to clear, and they're 1-0 up against GAM Esports.
Weibo Gaming showing up and doing what they're supposed to do, picking up a win here in game number 1. Are there things I would like to see them do better? Absolutely. They played parts of this early game pretty poorly. I think the chaotic nature of it honestly probably took them by surprise. I think they were definitely a little caught off guard with just how aggressive GAM were willing to be into this, team here. But at the end of the day, the talent ended up prevailing, and Weibo ended up coming out on top with, say it with me now, the easy to execute comp.
Themes are starting to show here already through one day of the Asia Invitational. Yeah, hey, listen, J4 Orianna undefeated on the day. Just saying.
It's true. It's true. And honestly, I mean, can we really be all that surprised? I mean, this comp is just so strong, and I think obviously the surrounding cores can be consistent and can be flexible, right? You can basically put anything you want with it. It's why it's so good on red side and fearless, is because it doesn't really matter what's left up to you. You can make almost anything work that you feel comfortable with. And even if I do like GAM's draft, and I want to make it clear, I actually do really like GAM's draft. I think in a completely neutral perspective, if you're talking about some of the best teams in the world who are not making mistakes, I might even favor GAM's draft, because I think the way that they can execute on this has a lot of options. They have a lot of tools at their disposal. They just can't really afford to make the kinds of positioning mistakes they made throughout this game. And, I think the number that really jumps out to me, other than the gold graph, because that's an LPL gold graph, but the number that jumps out to me is Kiaya doing 10,000 damage after being gifted 3 towers in the early game and basically free farm. He needed to be more effective than he was.
It's good to see that the LPL team in this one able to punish those, kind of lackadaisical mistakes, right? Artemis getting caught just not linking up with his team to go through a very treacherous jungle really is what set the gears in motion for the end of that game. More importantly, though, the headline that I take away, the top damage dealer in this game is Xiaohu. In this matchup, it's a lot easier to protect him, right? We didn't talk about Xiaohu very much in the early game. That always bodes well. If he can just kind of comfortably coast into one of his patented mage picks, Xiaohu is very on point and will constantly punish these opponents. It's just in the LPL, he had a hard time getting comfortable, right? And it's good to see in this first game, GAM relatively GAM did not punish him. He was relatively untouched in this game 1 on the Orianna.
It's got to be the setup that you have for Xiaohu. Again, when we see him run into problems as a player, it's because you ask him to do too much. And I think he is very good at the things that he feels comfortable doing. And when you don't overcomplicate the game, when you tell him, hey, man, we're gonna front line for you. We're going to set you up. We're going to have a ton of engage. Put the ball on the enemy and press R, do all your damage. Like, it makes things easy, and he's one of the best in the world at executing on that, even if he's not always consistent at being able to execute on that. And I think, there are a lot of times where I think, Xiaohu can run into problems. Games like this is where he thrives. If he can do this again, just put him into the kind of spot where he can be that primary carry. He was that for a lot of this year for this team.
So you look back at some of these fights. They were murky and wacky. But as you pointed out, Kman, the LPL Otacon virus has spread towards our LCP representative, GAM Esports go all out for an Octagon, costs them a huge lead, and then exactly what we talked about, right? Artemis getting picked off here really set the chains in motion for Weibo to be too far ahead to deal with. I will say this last fight, Light was routinely mispositioning early on this. Lucian, he gets full value out of the movement this champion brings, because it took forever for GAM to finally kill this guy off.
Yeah, and honestly, this is one of those fights that really just showcases where they're at in the game, because if this fight had happened 5 to 7 minutes earlier, I think there's a real shot GAM win it in terms of the setup, because I just don't know if they have the tools to be able to deal with it. The problem is they just weren't able to get the fights at the right time. They weren't able to get the gold at the right time, and they just got too far behind to the point where they really had no way to deal with that Lucian plus Orianna combination, which was doing so much damage in the back end of this game. But now the question is, what can you do going into game number 2? What is the adaptation for GAM? What is the change? Well, how many junglers are banned, right? Because we saw the Nocturne and the Wukong taken off the board. There are a lot of champions that kind of fit that mold. I think something like Trundle comes to mind for me that kind of is in a same vein. Even something like the Pantheon or the Xin Zhao, maybe even the Viego if you want another carry-oriented game from GAM. Certainly wouldn't be frustrated by that.
Who gets the carry award for this game? What? It's Breathe on the Scion. I don't hate it, right? Did a really good job kind of swapping comfortably in. We said the Scion got so far ahead because of the shenanigans that happened level 1. Breathe plays a pretty comfortable Scion game. I think Breathe doesn't get a lot of love in the MVP conversations of most of his performances and wins for Weibo, so good to see that the Asia Invitational voters give him that